So now that we've talked about the Tax Policy Center study, I also want to bring up some other interesting facts that have been found regarding how the Internal Revenue Service targets low-income individuals. So I started my tax career as a student at Georgia State University School of Law. And one of my favorite things about that program is we operated a low-income taxpayer clinic. And what that clinic did is provide free legal services to those that are under the poverty line that needed assistance defending themselves and their rights as a taxpayer against our federal government. And so that's when I first fell in love with tax. And it really opened my eyes to see that lower income individuals, specifically people of color, are often more targeted in audits than higher net worth individuals, higher income earners. And there's a reason for this. The reason for this is it costs the government $150 to initiate a correspondence exam for EITC credit. If you don't know what EITC is, it's the Earned Income Tax Credit. And it is a way for people to get refundable credits that work and that have dependents. And that credit can oftentimes be a make or break for these individuals. They a lot of times don't have savings. And so getting, their $6,000 refundable credit, they use that for emergency savings, they use that for emergency expenses. But the government targets them because it's cheaper for them to do so, right? It only costs them $150 and it only takes them about 5 hours. Where if we have an individual with over $10 million, right, and a taxable income, it could take the government anywhere 60 to 251 hours to deal with that audit. So since the government has decreased funding for the Internal Revenue Service, unfortunately, what they've been doing is targeting lower income taxpayers and correspondence exams because it's cheaper. Now let's sit back and take that in for a minute, right? Let's say you're getting a $4,000 refundable credit or a $6,000 refundable credit. I'm a tax attorney. I guarantee you, unfortunately, I'm one of the lowest cost attorneys in town, I would say. And I think that all stems back from the tax clinic. But when you're gonna pay a tax attorney for an audit, most of my colleagues will just say $6,000, right? $6,000 is our starting line. That's what we're gonna do the retainer is. Well, if you're only entitled to a $4,000 credit or a $6,000 credit, why would you pay an attorney $6,000 to challenge that credit, right? It doesn't make sense. It's not financially sound. So what can happen is the IRS denies the credit, right? Maybe takes away their dependency exemptions, they deny the earned income credit. These people actually end up owing tax because they already got the refund and they spent it, and now they're having to challenge our federal government, but they don't have the resources to do so or the money to fight for their rights as a taxpayer. And that's really hard for me as a tax attorney to have to see individuals where it's just not worth the cost or they can't afford the cost. And again, that's where the low income taxpayer clinic comes in. But there's a lot of people that are in this, they're not below the poverty line, but they're not wealthy by any means, but they still can't afford proper representation. And a lot of my colleagues that are not lawyers, I would say tax resolution companies, these nationwide companies, target people of color unknowingly. These individuals don't know that they're not the companies, but the people that are listening to these ads don't know that they're targeting them. But when I'm driving around Atlanta and I, am listening to Hot 107.9 or 97.9, that are predominantly people of color, rap, local Atlanta artists, they're targeting ads specifically at people of color that have tax problems with the intent of charging them so many fees. They'll say, oh, you just pay us $250 a month and we'll take care of your tax issue. And by the end of it, they've paid $8,000 or $10,000 for representation that they never received. And so it's a whole system, this whole system that is disproportionately affecting people of color versus white people. And I see it every day in my industry. And I, as a white person, used to just be like, well, it's fine, right? Because I'm not racist. I represent taxpayers. I represent people of color. I do this work every day. And now I feel like we're to a point where it's no longer enough. It's not enough for me to sit here and say that just because I represent people of color and I defend people against our government every day, that I'm doing enough. So I wanted to take my role as an attorney. People trust me. They say that they believe that I understand our tax code, that I'm a knowledgeable tax attorney, obviously, or they wouldn't ask me to speak at these conferences and teach other lawyers. So I wanted to take this time to use my knowledge and resources to help others understand, even though you can't see it, it exists, right? And so I would encourage all other professionals in any other area of law, any other professions, to take the time to make a video for your community, for people to understand how people of color are disproportionately affected in your industry.